Hey guys, it's Riley. Real quick, I just want to apologize for not having more videos out lately, but we will have more. Not next weekend. I will be out of town next weekend, but we'll have more personality interviews coming up. And with that, I want to get into what our video is about, which is Abraham Lincoln, the great INTP Abraham Lincoln, and specifically, we're going to be talking about how he incorporated his shadow and how that led him to become a very successful leader. Now, to start off, I'm going to tell you a story about Abe Lincoln and his early political career. He wrote a anonymous letter to his political opponent James Shields, in which he criticized his governing and just in a fit of anger, basically wrote a nasty letter to this guy. And eventually, James Shields did find out who wrote the letter and challenged Abe Lincoln to a duel. But the duel did not, in fact, happen. Abe Lincoln learned a important thing from this experience, though, which was that he would never allow himself for this shadow of his to jeopardize his political career in such a way. Now, Abe Lincoln would commonly reflect on the fact that he had a shadow and that it seemed to him that he had a split personality. On the one hand, he could be like a typical INTP and very polite and mild-mannered and soft-spoken. He was quite sensitive to other people, and this is what made him quite attractive to other people. But on the other hand, he could be quite violent. He had his vices. He could be quite cruel. Under the surface, he was quite ambitious, even though many people may not have really picked up on that. And instead of trying to repress this side of himself, when it came out after this shenanigan took place, instead of trying to repress this further, he knew deep down that there was no way that he was going to be able to keep this under wraps, because there is no repressing the shadow. The shadow will come out in one form or another. So instead, he decided to channel his ENTJ shadow into more positive means and make this perceived weakness into a strength. And there was a number of strategies that he used in order to do this, but the main strategy was obviously that he directed this ambition that his shadow had into his political career. Another thing that he would do, if he was quite angry at something that happened, he would write what he called hot letters, in which he would give his full opinion to someone on a page in a letter, which he never intended to send, and in fact would throw out after he wrote it. He enjoyed boxing. He enjoyed the competition that came with that, and allowed himself to partake in that in a healthy manner, so that it would not come out in an unhealthy manner. Now, I believe that him being able to do this actually probably was in large part what saved the U.S. from splitting in two, because he was able to become the leader of this country, and because he had incorporated himself, and because he was an INTP, and because he was more level-headed than possibly a more commanding type that you would expect to be a president like an ENTJ, because he was more level-headed than a character like that, he was able to actually carry the Union to victory. Now, before the Civil War happened, many people predicted that it would happen many years in the future, including Abraham Lincoln. He believed that there was something special about the United States that he needed to preserve, and that was his one mission. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. That is what he set out to do. He understood also that because of his nature as an INTP, obviously he didn't know he was an INTP, but he understood that his nature was to be somewhat perfectionistic in his plans, and knew that there was no way that he could possibly predict all of the outcomes that would come about during this war, and decided to have a simple strategy in order to win the war. And that was when reflecting on the possibility of a war, he decided that the North would inevitably win as long as they didn't get bogged down by the conflict and agree to peace terms. When he actually became president, he kept this in mind the entire time. And no matter how many people were urging him to sign peace terms, no matter how bad the situation was in the North with public opinion, he kept in mind that he just has to keep the North together and committed to this act of keeping the Union together. And eventually they would in fact win due to their superior manpower and superior industry. And through doing so, he was able to win the war, even though it did stretch many years and cost many lives. But by keeping this simple goal in mind instead of a complicated strategy, he was able to win. So now I will tell you why I wanted to make this video, which is that I noticed that it seems like a lot of INTPs don't really have role models, which is fine. I think that having a role model is very important, or at least to look at people, especially people who are like yourself in history or today, and try to emulate some of their behaviors and some of their strategies in order to become a better person. Now, Abraham Lincoln was able to, he was a very ENTJ focused INTP, I would say. Being a president, I would say you'd have to be like that. But what you have to realize is that because of some of the perceived weaknesses that an INTP would have, being a leader, he was able to actually make those into strengths through having a level head, but then also incorporating this more ambitious side to himself. So with that, yeah, I just want to conclude that it is important to incorporate it, different sides of yourself, because they all will come out. If you're a very empathetic person, it's important to embrace that side of yourself, not try to repress any side of your personality, because they will not be successfully repressed, and you can make these perceived weaknesses into strengths, such as Abraham Lincoln. And with that, I'm going to end the video. Thanks for watching, and tell me what you think of this video. I would like to hear if anyone does have any role models and who those are and why they chose those people.